The chamber of the Galactic Council was built to inspire awe. It was a giant circular room with walls made of black glass that reflected the light of distant stars. The seats rose in tall tiers, each marked with the sigil of a different world. Hundreds of alien representatives sat in those seats, whispering in low voices. But tonight, one seat was empty. The human seat. The chair was carved from dark oak wood, a gift from Earth when humanity first joined the Council. It was polished to perfection, but now it sat alone, unclaimed. Dust had begun to gather on its edges, like the galaxy itself had. Forgotten its purpose, Council Speaker Dracor, a tall reptilian with golden scales, tapped his claw against the stone table. The room grew quiet. "This meeting," he said, his deep voice echoing through the chamber, "is to finalize the decision regarding the humans." Several aliens shifted uncomfortably. A thin, silver-skinned envoy from the HFY Alliance spoke first. "There is nothing left to finalize. The evidence is clear. Humanity sold fleet secrets to the Creel hordes during the Rim War. This is treason." Across the table, a blue-feathered Avia delegate let out a sharp laugh. "Treason, that word is too small. They risked the lives of all Council species. They deserve exile." No one in the room questioned whether the evidence was real. No one dared. The datapads had shown coded transmissions, hidden supply routes, and human encryption keys. All the signs pointed to betrayal. What no one admitted, not even to themselves, was that the evidence had been planted. It had been easy. Humanity was young in galactic terms. They were strong, clever, and unpredictable. Too unpredictable. The older species in the Council had grown uneasy watching Earth's colonies expand, watching human ships chart dangerous, unclaimed regions. Humans were the wild card, and wild cards were dangerous. So the Council had decided to remove the problem before it grew larger, quietly, permanently. Dracor's golden eyes scanned the chamber. "Let it be known," he said, "that the humans are hereby stripped of Council membership. All trade agreements are void. All military alliances are dissolved. Their colonies will be cut off from Council supply lines." A murmur of approval rippled through the chamber. Some faces looked relieved. Others looked coldly satisfied. Only one voice broke the harmony. It came from Ambassador Velta, a tall insect-like being from the desert world of Sakara. Speaker Velta said slowly, "May I remind the Council that humans are not without resources. They will not accept exile quietly." The Avia delegate gave a dismissive wave. "They are isolated. Their fleets are scattered. Their colonies depend on our trade. Without us, they will wither and die. They will not be a threat." Tilted his head. His compound eyes reflected the pale glow of the chamber lights. "Perhaps, but I have heard it said that humans are patient." The words hung in the air. No one replied. Dracor slammed his claw again. "Enough. The decision is made." A gavel struck the table. The sound was sharp, final, and just like that, humanity was gone from the Council. The delegates began to rise from their seats, their robes and armor rustling as they spoke to one another in low voices. Deals would be made tonight. Territories would be claimed now that the humans were no longer there to compete. Outside the chamber's great windows, the stars shone quietly, indifferent to the Council's politics. No one noticed the small drone that floated high above the chamber, hidden in the shadows of the ceiling. It was no larger than a bird, and its single red eye recorded every word far across the galaxy. In the deep cold of interstellar space, the recording was received, It played in front of a woman standing on the bridge of a massive warship. She listened without moving. Her face was calm, her eyes unreadable. When the final gavel strike echoed through the transmission, she turned to the officers around her. "They made their choice," she said softly. The officers stood at attention. "Set course for the Council's core worlds," she ordered. The voice was not loud, but in it was a promise. Back in the Council chamber, Ambassador Velter lingered as the others left. He stood near the empty human seat and studied it for a long moment. There was something unsettling about its stillness, like the calm before a storm. He leaned closer and whispered to himself, "They will come back, and when they do, it will not be in peace." Velter straightened and left the room, his long shadow stretching across the floor. The dust on the human chair remained untouched, but far away in the black void between stars, engines began to burn. This ending sets up mystery and tension for the next part, while making the audience feel the betrayal and anticipate the fleets. Arrival * Ambassador Velter S. Personal chamber was dim, lit only by the soft blue glow of a holomap. It showed the Galactic Council's territories stretching across the stars. Lines marked the trade routes. Symbols marked the fortified worlds. His four thin hands moved over the map, making adjustments, noting the colonies that had once been human. Already, their supply lines had been severed. Already, smaller worlds were sending messages asking for protection in exchange for loyalty to the Council. Velter should have felt satisfied. This was politics. This was power. And yet, something weighed on him. His private communicator pulsed with a faint red light. That was unusual. Very few had access to this channel. He reached for it, his clawed fingers tapping the receiver. A small hollow message flickered to life. No voice, no face. Only for words, written in sharp white letters. "We are still here." Velter froze. His antenna twitched. The message was unsigned, unencrypted. That meant whoever sent it wanted him to see it instantly. He replayed the words, again and again. They felt heavy, deliberate, almost like a promise. For a moment, he considered sending the message to the Council Security Committee, but he stopped himself. What would he say? That he received a cryptic threat? They would laugh. They would remind him that the human fleets had been dismantled, their shipyards shut down. They would tell him that humans were finished, and perhaps they were right. Velter deleted the message and returned to his map. But deep inside, a quiet unease had taken root, far away. In the dark cold between the spiral arms of the galaxy, a different map was being studied. On the bridge of the human flagship, Resolute, Commander Sarah Hale stood before a holoprojection of the Council's core worlds. The crew around her worked in silence, each motion precise, disciplined. "We are on schedule, Commander," her first officer reported. "Fleet formation holding, engines stable, no external transmissions detected." Holt nodded. "Good. Keep it that way. They must not know until we are already in orbit." She stepped closer to the projection, her eyes locked on a single glowing point, the Council's capital world, Zymara. It was a jewel of the galaxy, home to the great chamber where humanity's seat now sat empty. "They thought they could erase us," Hale said quietly. "But you can't erase what you fear. You can only delay it." The officer glanced at her. "And when we arrive," Hale's voice was cold steel, "we remind them, weeks passed." The Council moved on as if humanity had never existed. Trade agreements were signed, colonies shifted allegiance. and new security patrols guarded the borders to most. The humans were already a forgotten story, a cautionary tale of ambition and betrayal, but on a small mining outpost at the far edge of the Council's territory, a lone patrol ship picked up something strange. It was a faint energy signature deep in the void, moving slowly but steadily toward Council space. Probably debris, the pilot muttered. But when he magnified the signal, his eyes widened. It wasn't debris, it was a ship, and it was running, without transponders. By the time the patrol tried to report it, the signal was gone absorbed by a sudden static burst. Ambassador Velter received the next warning 3 days later. This time, it was not a message. It was an image, a single photograph, grainy but clear enough to see what it showed. The silhouette of a massive warship against the stars. Its hull bore a single, unmistakable emblem, Earth's crest, a blue and white sphere with the outline of a laurel wreath. Velter stared at it for a long time. His hands trembled slightly. He called the security committee at once. "I've received proof human ships are moving through the outer sectors." The reply came with polite annoyance. "Ambassador, with all respect, human warships no longer exist. What you've received is likely a forgery. Disinformation from one of the Rimworld pirates." Velter's mandibles clicked with frustration. "I tell you, this is real, Ambassador," the voice interrupted. "The Council has more pressing matters. Do not let old fears cloud your judgment." The line went dead in the vast emptiness beyond Council space. The Resolute and her sister ships drifted through the dark. Their hulls were coated with special reflective plating, making them nearly invisible to standard scanners. The fleet moved in silence. There were no running lights, no chatter over comms. Only the low hum of the engines and the steady thrum of power cores charging weapons. Commander Hale stood at the observation window, watching the faint glow of a distant star grow larger. Each day brought them closer. Her mind replayed the last session she had attended in the Council chamber, the sneers, the cold voices, the final strike of the gavel. "They think they won," she murmured. Her reflection in the glass looked back at her, sharp and unyielding. "They don't understand. This isn't revenge. This is correction." Back on Zymera, life was normal. The great markets were crowded with merchants, the skies full of trading vessels. The council chambers were busy with debates over taxation and border disputes. Only Velter's eyes kept drifting toward the stars. He didn't know when it would happen, but he was certain now it would happen. Late one evening, as the city lights glittered beneath the towering spires of the capital, Velter stood alone on his balcony. He gazed upward and whispered, "Into the night, come then, humans. Let us see if the galaxy remembers your name." And far, far away, in the darkness that no council patrol dared to search, the engines of the human fleet burned brighter. They were coming. The day began like any other on Zymera, the jewel of the Galactic Council. Twin suns rose above the silver towers of the capital city, casting golden light across the sky bridges and crystal domes. Traders filled the great markets, selling fruits from the Thalari gardens, metals from the mining moons, and silks spun by the Waterworld artisans. Children of a dozen different species ran through the streets, their laughter echoing against the smooth white walls. Above, the airways shimmered with hundreds of small skycraft, moving in neat lines toward the starports. It was a day of peace, or so everyone thought. Ambassador Velter stood in his office high within the spire of Accord, staring out at the horizon. His unease had only grown since the second message. He kept telling himself that the Council's dismissal was right, that humanity was too far, too weak, too isolated to ever return in force. And yet, something in the air felt wrong. At first, he thought the shadows creeping across the skyline were clouds, but the weather grid reported clear skies. Then he noticed something strange. The light from the suns was dimming. He looked up, his mandibles froze in place. The first thing he saw was the shape. Vast, impossible, like a wall of metal, and darkness sliding across the heavens. The second thing he saw was the size. It was not a single ship. It was hundreds. A fleet so massive it blotted out one of the suns entirely. Gasps and shouts rose from the streets below as others looked skyward. Skycraft broke formation, some scattering in panic. Velta's communicator buzzed with urgent messages. He ignored them. His eyes remained locked on the sight above. Every ship bore the same emblem, a blue and white sphere wrapped in a laurel wreath. Earth's crest in the council chamber. Alarms blared. Representatives rushed to their seats, speaking over one another in panic. "This is a declaration of war," shouted the Avia delegate. There, in restricted orbit, cried a Thalari envoy. "Activate planetary shields." Council Speaker Draka slammed his claw against the table, ordered the defense fleets to intercept, but an aide's voice shook as they replied, "Sir, the defense fleets are already gone." A silence heavier than fear fell over the chamber. "What do you mean, gone?" Dracor demanded. The aide's eyes were wide. "Our fleets are not responding. Their transponders are silent. We believe they were destroyed before they reached orbit." Above the planet, the human fleet hung like a black curtain drawn across the sky. The Resolute sat at its center, larger and deadlier than any vessel the Council had ever faced. On the bridge, Commander Sarah Hale stood with her hands behind her back. Her voice was calm. "Hold position. Let them see us." Her first officer nodded. "Ma'am, our weapons are primed. We have orbital lock on all major Council facilities." "Not yet," she said. "Fear first, then fire." Down in the streets of Zimmerer, the panic spread. Citizens flooded the transport hubs, trying to board evacuation ships. Shouts filled the air. "The humans are here. We're under attack. Run." From the starports, several Council warships tried to launch. They barely cleared the atmosphere before lances of plasma fire from orbit tore them apart. The explosions painting the morning sky in streaks of red and gold. Velta's communicator finally broke through the noise. It was Dracor Ambassador. "You warned us. You saw this coming. What do they want?" Velta stared at the great shadow moving across the suns. "They want to be remembered," he said softly. On the Resolute, Hale stepped forward, opened the channel. The communications officer tapped the controls, and across every Council world, on every screen, in every home, in every military outpost, the image of Sarah Hale appeared. Her eyes were sharp, her tone cold. "You lied," she said, her voice echoing in alien ears across the stars. "You framed us, you exiled us, and you thought distance would keep you safe." She leaned forward slightly, her face filling the screens. "You were wrong. In the Council chamber, no one spoke. No one moved. They could only listen as Hale's voice wrapped around them like a tightening chain. You took our place in the stars," she continued, "but we have taken something greater, your sense of safety. Look above you, look at the sky. That shadow is the truth you tried to bury." She paused, letting the silence build. We do not come to negotiate. We do not come to threaten. We come to deliver judgment. A moment later, the human fleet shifted. Weapons arrays extended from the hulls like the wings of hunting birds. The air over Zymara crackled as energy built in the clouds. Hale's voice came one last time. Never betray humanity. And then the sky lit up. The first strike came without warning. Plasma bombardments, hammering Council defense stations. Orbital platforms shattered, raining debris into the atmosphere. City shields flared and buckled under the relentless assault. On the streets, the people screamed as the skies turned from blue to black to fire. The humans didn't target civilians, not yet. Every blast was precise, tearing through military targets with terrifying accuracy. It was not the chaos of war, it was the cold precision of a predator dismantling its prey. High in the spire of a cord, Velta watched the destruction unfold. He felt no triumph in being right. This was not justice. This was the arrival of something the Council had never truly understood: human resolve. And as the great towers shook beneath the thunder of the orbital strikes, Velta knew one thing with absolute certainty: the Council's age was over. The city of Zymara shook under the rain of fire. Plasma bolts carved the skies, their blinding trails crossing above the towers like streaks of molten light. Council defense grids lit up for a moment, then died in showers of sparks. From space, the human fleet moved in perfect unity. No wasted shots, no random destruction. Every strike hit a military hub, orbital docks, shield relays, command bunkers. The precision was terrifying. On the bridge of the Resolute, Commander Sarah Hale stood like a statue. Her eyes never left the tactical display, where glowing red points marked Council strongholds, and one by one, those points went dark. Sector 3 defense line neutralized, her first officer reported. Proceed to Sector 4, Hale replied. Keep civilian casualties at minimum. Our goal is control, not chaos. Her voice carried no rage, no triumph, only focus. This was not a revenge spree. This was a message carved into the heart of the galaxy. In the Council chamber, panic had replaced politics. Dracor slammed his claws against the table. Send a surrender signal. Open every channel. An aide's voice cracked. They've blocked all outgoing transmissions. Speaker, we can only receive. A shadow fell over the chamber as another blast shook the spire of a cord. Dust rained from the high ceilings. Velta, calm amid the chaos, turned to Dracor. You wanted to erase them. Now they erase you. Outside, the streets were filled with terrified crowds. Alien citizens looked to the sky not for answers, but for mercy. Evacuation ships struggled to launch, but human warcraft controlled the air. Not a single vessel escaped without permission. On one of the outer platforms, a young Thaleri guard raised his weapon to ward the dark shapes above. His captain grabbed his arm. Don't, the captain said. It will only make them notice you. The guard looked up at the fleet, fear in his silver eyes. What are they? The captain's voice was low. Humans. In orbit, Hale gave a short command. Patch me to all Council leaders. Direct feed. The main view screen in the chamber flickered again. Hale's face appeared, sharp and shadowed by the glow of her console. You took our seat. You broke our treaties. You poisoned our name. She leaned closer, her voice slow and deliberate. You forgot the one thing you should have remembered. Never stop preparing. She gestured to the display behind her. where a map of the Council territories now showed multiple red lines cutting into its borders. While you celebrated our exile, we built in the dark. While you counted our losses, we counted your weaknesses. And now, we cashed the debt you wrote. Drakor tried to stand tall. What is it you want? Human, riches, territory, the Council's surrender. Hale's lips curved into the faintest smile. We want memory. We want every world, every child, every leader in your galaxy to remember this day. We want the story, told long after your governments crumbled, that you betrayed humanity and you paid the price. Her voice hardened. And we want you to understand this is not our full strength. This is only what we sent. At her signal, the human fleet shifted. Dozens of smaller ships broke formation, descending into the atmosphere. They moved fast and low, disabling weapon arrays, taking control of comm stations, cutting power to key military zones. On the ground, human drop teams in dark armor stormed Council garrisons. They were ghosts, silent, coordinated, unstoppable. The Council's own soldiers, trained for years, found themselves outmatched in minutes. Doors sealed behind them, weapons jammed, communication lines severed. In one captured command post, a human marine tore down the Council's flag and replaced it with Earth's crest. The action was broadcast on public feeds across the city. Velter watched the feed from his datapad. Around him, the Council chamber was a storm of shouting voices. Some wanted to fight until the end. Others begged to open negotiations. Velter said nothing. He knew now that no negotiation could change what was happening. This was history, and it was already written. From her command chair, Hale received confirmation. All primary Council defense nodes neutralized. Their fleets are gone. Leaders contained. We have complete orbital control. Hale nodded. Then begin the final phase. In the streets of Zymara, silence fell. The bombardment stopped. The fires still burned, but no new ones began. The human ships hovered like silent predators above their prey. From the largest dropship, a column of armored soldiers marched into the Council square. At their head was a single figure in white command armor, Hale herself. The sight made the crowds freeze. No alien leader had expected the commander to set foot on their soil. Hale stepped forward to the central podium, her helmet under one arm. She looked across the sea of alien faces. You will rebuild, she said. You will recover, but you will never forget. She pointed toward the sky, where the black silhouettes of the fleet hung motionless. As long as Earth exists, the stars will remember that humans are not prey. We are the storm that comes when you think you are safe. Velter stood at the edge of the crowd, listening. He knew she was not speaking only to the Council, but to the galaxy itself, and in that moment he realized the truth humanity didn't just win a battle today. They had written their name into the fear of every living world. Back aboard the Resolute, as Hale prepared to return to orbit, her first officer asked, "Commander, what if they try again?" Hale glanced at the burning horizon, then at the silent fleet above. "They won't," she said. "Once is a mistake. Twice is suicide." The dropship lifted into the air, carrying the commander back to her ship above Zymara. The human fleet began to turn, their dark hulls catching the light of the twin suns. One by one, they jumped into hyperspace, vanishing as suddenly as they had appeared. Only the memory remained. The skies above Zymara were empty now. The black wall of human warships had vanished into hyperspace, leaving only drifting smoke and broken clouds. The suns shone once more over the city, but the light felt colder somehow, as if it passed through a shadow that would never lift. The people of the capital began to emerge from shelters, streets that had been filled with fear and chaos only. Hours ago were now silent. Burned-out defense turrets lay in heaps. Council banners hung in tatters, their bright colors dulled by ashdot in the Grand Council Square. The flag of Earth still waved where human soldiers had planted it. No one dared touch it. Ambassador Velta walked slowly through the ruins. He passed shattered walls and smoking craters, yet the destruction was controlled. Human strikes had been precise, no wanton burning of homes, no slaughter of civilians. Every building that lay in rubble had once housed a military post or a council. Command center, this was not the destruction of rage. It was the work of a teacher punishing a defiant student. The council chamber itself was nearly untouched, though its members sat in silence. Many were still in shock, staring at the floor. Some had not spoken since the first human broadcasts. Speaker. Dracor's voice was hoarse when he finally broke the quiet. We must rebuild our fleets. We must prepare for Velta. Cut him off. No fleet will save you. You do not understand what happened here. The other delegates turned toward him. They came with power beyond anything you have seen, Velta continued. But they did not use it to destroy you entirely. They could have. They chose not to. Do you know why? No one answered. Because destruction is forgotten over time, Velta said. But fear lasts for generations. Beyond the Council's core worlds, the message spread like wildfire. On mining colonies, trading stations, and border outposts, the same story was told. The humans returned. They came with a fleet that blotted out the suns. They left only a warning. Merchants spoke of it in hushed tones over drinks in spaceport bars. Soldiers whispered about it in the quiet hours of their watch. Even children told it as a fireside tale, each retelling making the human fleet seem larger, darker, more unstoppable. The details didn't matter. The fear did. On one small frontier world, a young Avia recruit asked his commander, why didn't the humans just finish the council? They could have. The commander, an old veteran of the Rim War, stared out at the stars for a long time before answering. Because they want us to wake every day and remember. They want us to live knowing they can return whenever they wish. The recruit shivered. Meanwhile, far from the council's reach, the human fleet regrouped at a remote staging system. On the Resolute, Commander Sarah Hale walked the length of the hangar bay, inspecting rows of fighters being serviced by crews. She could still see the faces of the council leaders in her mind the moment they realized there was no negotiation left. Her first officer approached. Final reports are in. 0 civilian deaths on target worlds. All objectives achieved. Fleet is ready for next orders. Hale gave a small nod. Good. The galaxy will remember this as a lesson, not a massacre. The officer hesitated. And if they don't remember? Hale's expression hardened. Then we remind them again. Weeks later, the council attempted to re-establish patrols in their outer territories. But wherever they went, they found signs of humanity's reach-destroyed listening posts, intercepted transmissions, entire pirate fleets wiped out with the precision of a scalpel. It was as if the humans were everywhere and nowhere at once, watching, waiting in the archives. Of Zamara, an anonymous historian recorded the events in a sealed file. The title was simple: The Day the Sky Turned Black. The final lines of the record read, the lesson was not in the ships, nor the weapons. The lesson was in restraint. The humans came not to end us, but to ensure we would live, knowing they could. And that is a weight no empire can bear lightly. Velta returned often to the empty human seat in the council chamber. He had it cleaned and polished, though no one would sit in it. It remained as it had been that day, silent, unclaimed. A reminder. Some called it a provocation. Velta called it wisdom, because one day, perhaps not soon, the humans might send another message. And when that day came, he wanted the council to remember the last one, out in the black of deep space. The Resolute cruised between the stars. Her hull reflected no light, her engines silent in the void. In her command chair, Sarah Hale closed her eyes for a moment. She could almost hear the gavel strike from that long-ago meeting. The moment humanity had been cast out. That sound had stayed with her all these years. She opened her eyes and looked at the stars ahead. "Let's keep moving," she ordered, because, for humanity, exile had never been the end. It had been the beginning.